I just think it's a little annoying that we're even having this discussion. Lizards are obviously faster than tigers.
Do you hear yourself? Every time we go out to get ice cream, you have to hop on my shoulder because one of my steps is like 10 days of travel for you.
Lizards are the best. You know it. I know it. Everyone says lizards have speed. I know speed. Tigers don't have it. Slow. You're slow.
Oh yeah? Name your sources, because here's a fact for you. Bengal tigers can sprint up to 50 miles an hour. Your fastest cousin, the black spiny iguana, can only run up to 35.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're getting fictional now? We're getting fictional. If we want to get fictional, we're using fantasies. Did you know dragons can fly? And those are like my mythological ancestors. So, case closed.
You're not a dragon!
Oh, wow. I didn't see him there. Did you see him?
No, that just
I didn't even see
nowhere.
him. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
Clearly he's faster. You know?
Yeah, God, jeez.
That was fast.
You guys ready? Lobby up.
Hey guys, lobby up.
GG's, lobby up.
Dude, we gotta lobby up.
Lobby up.
Hey, should we lobby up?
Yo, lobby up.
Lobby up, y'all.
Hey, let's grab a beer. Lobby up.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode. You've got Matt and Lewis here in the lobby.
How's it going, everybody?
Today, we're going to get back to a episode style that we haven't done in a while. And we're really excited about it because the last one was an awesome hit. We're doing a Whatcha Watchin. And if you haven't watched our first one, go back and check it out. We talk about the Fallout series. But today, we're talking about the brand new, very much video game themed movie, Sonic 3.
Dude, the Sonic series has been going really strong with these movies in terms of popularity. People are eating this up, dude. And fun fact, did you know...
Already.
The last movie that Johnny Lay, Murph, and I, because we were all three together, because we used to have the movie pass.
Right.
Well, the AMC one anyways. But anyways, the last movie we saw before the pandemic shut everything down in the world was the Sonic movie.
Oh, the first one.
The first one, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. So that was the premonition for the end of time.
Oh my, for real. No, Murph kept making this joke. He's like, dude, if I die because of this pandemic, Sonic better not be the last movie that I saw in theaters before I went. And I told him, I'm like, no, if in fact, you should be proud that that's the last movie you saw before you died.
That will be one of the last things that flashes before your eyes.
It's the ugly Sonic version.
And you know, it's honestly, there's so much to say about that, but truth be told, I actually haven't watched a single one of them until this week. I made my way and as it wasn't from lack of trying. I really did try to watch the first one back when my wife and friends have watched it, but it just never happened. And so, you know, when this one was coming out, I was like, I've got to get around to it. And luckily, all of them, except for the third one, obviously, are streaming on Hulu. So if you haven't seen them yourself, go watch them. You're probably already paying for the subscription to see it anyway.
Fair enough. So, dude, you saw the movies to lead up to Sonic 3. We watched Sonic 3, but before going into Sonic 3, did you have any expectations, any hopes, especially compared to the first and second?
So, with the first and second, like, freshly watched, I really didn't have that high of expectations. I just wanted it to be more Sonic. I didn't really think that it needed to blow me out of the water. It didn't need to be expanding the Sonic verse. I wasn't having some sort of unrealistic thing that I hoped for or anything. I was just like, okay, I know Keanu Reeves is in this. I'm gonna be happy probably.
Dude, Keanu Reeves as Shadow, the moment that was announced, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely fanboyed there because I am a lover of Sonic 2, specifically Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube. The amount of hours that I put into that game as a kid, unreal.
Really?
Unreal. I couldn't imagine. Probably we're talking at least 500 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I'm talking about as a kid. I mean, that was back in the day where you get a game, your parents buy it, and that's the game you're going to have for multiple months on end. And Sonic Adventure 2 and we have a long, nice history. So that being said, my expectations were pretty high for this movie, and then Keanu Reeves being the voice of Shadow was definitely a good start.
So I actually think it's really funny that Keanu Reeves wound up voicing Shadow, because in the very first movie, there's a scene where Sonic is not introduced to Tom and Maddie yet. He's just like hanging out in the shadows, lurking, and they're watching a movie, and Keanu Reeves is in it, and Sonic literally is like, "Oh, Keanu, classic!" Like he like calls it. So it's kind of funny, like breaking the fourth wall type of situation there.
Dude, they probably didn't even know that Keanu Reeves was going to voice Shadow at that point. But
No way.
that's brilliant. Actually, didn't even know that. But dude, did you play Sonic Adventure 2 as a kid?
No, so that's bringing me to the fact that I have criminally played virtually none of Sonic.
No way.
The only experience that I have with Sonic is with the literal very first game. When I was a kid, there was a dentist office that we went to constantly, and he, in his little waiting areas, there was like 4 waiting areas that you'd go to, and this dentist office was incredible, especially for kids. He always had like video game consoles set up everywhere, and he had a Sega Genesis set up, and I would play the like OG Sonic the Hedgehog like 2D game like every time that I went there.
Dude, that's actually kind of funny. So I was a Nintendo guy. You know that.
Yeah.
The world knows that. I was not a Sega guy. My experience with the Sonic franchise was because of the GameCube and a plug and play Sega Genesis controller. Do you remember those really cheap, like it's a Sega Genesis controller, you plug it into your TV, and it has like 10 like Sega games?
Yes.
That was my first experience with the original 3 Sonic games.
Oh, wow.
So
And
yeah,
I imagine it still played pretty well.
I mean, I couldn't tell the difference because I never played the original Genesis versions.
True.
And then eventually on the GameCube, you had the Sonic Mega Collection, the Sonic Gen Collection, the Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and then the Sonic Adventure Director's Cut. All of my experience with Sonic was because of the GameCube. So yeah, it's kind of wild, but I do love Sonic. I love Sonic as much as Mario. I didn't grow up with Sonic in the traditional sense, but I very much did. I feel like the last time that I was truly like invested in Sonic was Sonic Heroes, and then after that I feel like I kind of outgrew the series a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, they made a movie based off my favorite Sonic game,
Right.
and I can't wait to talk about it.
So before we go any further, this is everybody's big old spoiler warning. I know that the film just came out very recently, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out and then come back here and live in it a second time with us. But we will be discussing big plot points in the film. But that being said, apparently a lot of the story pulls inspiration from Sonic Adventure 2. Is that right?
So I would say the skeleton of Sonic Adventure 2 is definitely there.
Right.
It's not beat for beat, of course,
Yeah, it's an original narrative.
but it's there, and I think they did a good enough job for the big screen for those who don't know anything about Sonic and only know the first 2 movies. I think the story was fine. I would have loved to have seen more pulled from the Sonic Adventure 2 game, but I am also a giant nerd, so I had to emphasize that twice. A giant nerd.
Well, it's funny you say that, because in my mind, I'm a very analytical person, and so while I'm watching the film, I kind of compare, and it's hard for me not to do things like that. But I remember thinking about when I first saw Detective Pikachu for the first time in theaters, and I'm obviously a huge Pokemon fan, so going into it, I probably had rose-colored glasses on anyway, but I just remember seeing so many little details about Pokemon when I was watching that film for the first time, and it really hit a nail on the head for me. And I gotta say, like, a lot of this movie, I didn't see a lot of that.
So the thing that Detective Pikachu had going for it is that it was a completely original story in the Pokemon universe.
Yeah.
So there was no expectations on the story.
That's very fair.
And it's just like, oh, I'm in the Pokemon universe, give me a story there. And that's actually something I'm excited for the future. I hope that they return to that universe and give us more original stories set there.
Right.
Sonic, on the other hand, has the unfortunate task to compare to the games the comics and the fan expectations behind those comics. Because listen, there is not a bigger fandom in terms of like convoluted story than Sonic. The Sonic fandom story is just insane.
Kingdom Hearts would like a word.
I don't know, man. Check how many comic issues there are for Sonic that like the majority is just straight up canon. It's kind of like insane.
I don't know. I think it takes 2 seconds Google searching, looking up how the Kingdom Hearts story works to tell that it's pretty freaking convoluted.
I would love to do an episode on which one is convoluted or more convoluted. But yeah, I would say that Sonic had an uphill battle, especially with Sonic 3 having to compete with Sonic Adventure 2.
No, that's a really valid point, and I think it kind of held it back a bit, because you can tell that they're really trying to capture who Sonic is and not taint that whatsoever. But when they got to run wild with Eggman, it was a riot. It was so funny because they made him their own. There's no universe where Eggman acts the way that Jim Carrey does except for this one, and I'm glad that we have it. But because of that, I really think that it just held back so much. You can tell because they even use direct quotes from some of the games or comics. Like there was this one where he's like, talk about a low budget flight, no food or movies,
Yes!
I'm out of here. And that wasn't that from Sonic Adventures?
That's the one of the first lines he says in Sonic Adventure 2.
Okay,
There's
okay.
a lot of callbacks to the Sonic, specifically Sonic Adventure 2. One of the craziest callbacks that I saw in there was the ultimate life form is basically like a prototype to Shadow in the Sonic Adventure 2 game. He made a cameo in the sci-fi movie that Maria and Shadow were watching. And it was like a blink and you'd miss it thing. And I'm like, oh, no. You can't get that past me. I saw that. There's so many little instances like that. I mean, even something as small as like Knuckles and Tails tapping their foot waiting for Sonic in the beginning of the race. That's something that Sonic does when you wait too long in the original Sonic without pausing.
Gotcha.
And it's like the DNA, the love was definitely there. But again, I think my expectations were a little high for more to be pulled from the Sonic Adventure 2 games.
Yeah.
And then one of the big things that was definitely missing, in my opinion, in this movie was the lack of Rouge the Bat, which is a huge like deal to not have her in here.
Yes, and what I was reading was that basically you've got Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, and they're going against Rouge, Shadow, and Robotnik. And that was like a big part of it. You know, you have that 3-on-3. And yeah, like I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? Were they just not wanting to sexually confuse too many kids? Is that what it was, or what?
Mommy, what's with the sexy bat? Listen, if I could deal with that in the 3rd grade, I think kids will be fine. Listen, the crazy.
Did you really deal with it, or is it really just a part of who you are now and why you are the way you are?
I mean, fair. But it was definitely a missed character in there. Yeah. And I'll be honest. So let me go ahead and preface this. Eggman, Jim Carrey was so phenomenal.
Good. He stole the movies. He really, really did, because it was such a good. Whenever you saw him come on screen, you knew that you're going to laugh. You knew it was going to be something that was just going to be utterly ridiculous and funny. And I was a little worried because when I watched the first one, when he first comes on screen, he's like a little too serious and a little bit too much of a jerk. So I was like, okay, like it's definitely Jim Carrey DNA, but I was like, where's the silly funny? And then like shortly after that, he goes right into it.
And
but
through each movie, you kind of see his descent into madness because of this hedgehog.
Right.
So it was great, brilliant. Actually, I think his performance was a standout performance, and he definitely shows that he still has it in him to do whatever he wants and have a great time with him. But I wish it was just Eggman, and I wish that they would have done more like Sonic Adventure 2, the game. I wish Gerald Robotnik would have stayed dead, his grandfather.
Yeah.
Because I felt throughout the movie, as funny and as good as his chemistry was with himself, I feel like the villain category was just kind of overfilled. I mean, we had to split our attention between Eggman, between Gerald, and between Shadow.
And Agent Stone.
And Agent Stone is barely a bad guy. I love that guy. We'll get to him. But
Yeah.
I wish it would have focused more on Shadow over Gerald, because in the games, Gerald dies very early on, around the same time, spoilers, as Maria, which we'll get to. But he's dead in the games, and Eggman tries to fulfill his plans, not knowing how overboard those plans really were. And then at the end, they all come together to stop the plan that he set in motion. Here, he's front and center manipulating Eggman, and the whole time we're so focused on him that I feel like we're losing way more screen time on Sonic and Shadow. I feel like Jim Carrey had the most amount of screen time in this movie.
Yeah.
And then, like, let's not even talk about Tails and Knuckles, who were kind of relegated some more in this movie. I wish they would have just had Eggman and Shadow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely a complaint of mine.
No, that's totally fair. And I just want to say, I want to take a second, because you threw out a lot of names there. How good the casting choices were for all of these voices. Like,
oh, absolutely, dude.
oh my God. I mean, just the fact that they actually did a nod from these voice actors in their other films. Like, I feel like there were several times where Jim Carrey actually acted like things from The Grinch.
Dude, the Grinch. I kept feeling the Grinch in that performance. I'm glad you brought that up.
And Ben Schwartz as Sonic is really, really cool for me, because I was a huge fan of Parks and Rec, which he's a hilarious, really, and sometimes even annoying, but it's like funny still, character. And he does one of the things that he does in the show where he goes, "The worst." And my wife and I stay saying that like all the time, like, "This day's the worst," and he did it in the movie. I was like, oh man, such a good nod.
Something for the adults in the movie, movie theater.
Yes, that like kids wouldn't even know. And Idris Elba as Knuckles was so on
fantastic,
point.
fantastic.
So
I would
good.
say you're right in terms of voice acting. Bar none, probably some of the best in all of gaming movies.
Yes, I totally agree. Definitely agree. But listen, as much as that's great, we got to talk about like the story, man. And
Seeing Maria being killed in live action was wild.
yeah, and again, I don't know a lot about the source material.
She
but
dies in Sonic Adventure 2 as well.
No, but I think that she seemed like she was a good Maria.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, I would say this Maria is way better than the one in the games, because in the games, very superficial. You get them in flashbacks. It's not like you do a mission with her or anything. Like, it is very much a cutscene character.
Yeah.
So they definitely three-dimensionalized her in this movie, and it was great to see her, especially in the time period. You can see that it's like, I would say late 60s, right? Whenever the hippies are going wild, because based off the dancing she was doing with Shadow. But
yeah, it's supposed to be 50 years prior to now, so 60s, 70s.
yeah, so I think she was great. Better. I would say Maria was better in this movie, and it actually made her death hurt just a little bit more than in the games.
Yeah,
in the games, you kind of just accept that that's part of Shadow's backstory.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it's like, oh no, she was like a beautiful little child, and she was murdered by the government, which probably isn't the first time.
Yeah. A little too serious there, Lewis, but yeah. We're getting too real in this Sonic video game movie episode.
My bad.
But anyway, yeah, man, like, I think that you're kind of onto something here. I think trying to keep the kids' attention, keeping this under 2 hours, and still make it a cohesive story based off the source material was a tall order. And I think that they tried to jam just way too much into this film. And what wound up happening is we didn't really get to every single moment, every single aspect of this film was just like a quick second.
Yes, and like there would be a problem that needs to be fixed, and within 5 minutes that problem was fixed. So you know what? Let's break it down a little bit. The story is pretty simple. I can sum it up really quickly. Sonic finds out that there's a hedgehog like him named Shadow, who was a military experiment that came from outer space, and they meet each other, and then Sonic realizes that Shadow could be him if he didn't find family, and then craziness ensues. Like that's basically the core
Right.
of the story.
Of the premise, yeah.
Yeah, like it's about family. It's like Fast and Furious, you know? That's a great premise. I love that, and they could have expanded on that. But then it kind of got convoluted with, like I said, my least favorite character, which is Gerald Robotnik, because him, like I said, him being alive kind of just took away the mystery of the Sonic Adventure 2 game, and I was expecting certain beats, and I just didn't get it. My biggest gripe is that Sonic and Shadow barely interact with each other.
Yeah. And when they do, they're just fighting until the end. But
Until they're not.
yeah,
Literally
yeah.
that, like until they're not. In my notes here, my biggest complaint is that their team up at the end was not earned in
No.
any capacity.
Yeah, it was just a total 180. And, I got to say, when it comes to this, like when I was researching things, and we have 3 films of Sonic now, and this Master Emerald has only shown that there's 7 components like a couple times, but it's really been more of like a visual device than anything. Why isn't Sonic having to go collect these
Like in the games.
emeralds? Yeah, like in the games. And it's kind of been like my gripe with the rings. There's no explanation as to why he would collect them. And I get that it's probably hard to make this into this original idea, but I don't know. I just felt like maybe a better film would have been him, Knuckles, and Tails hunting down the emeralds, and then we would have had craziness ensue between Shadow and Robotnik and Rouge. Even there could have been room for her, like, competing against them. I feel like that would have been a lot more fun of a story, because it would have been really easy to drive plot. You're just going to the next emerald, but you could have made it interesting and funny, and there would have been a lot of interactions along the way.
That could have easily replaced the worst part of this movie to me. Other than the dance scene, the heist setup was just too long. Like Sonic kept going, "This is boring. I've been waiting so long," and I'm like, "Dude, Sonic felt like
Right.
I feel you." Like the heist scene lasted way too long, and I felt that could have been some time for Sonic and Shadow to meet several times over, get to know their wants and their needs and their motivations, to later lead up to the epic final battle.
Yeah.
With them teaming up. And again, we didn't get that. Sonic goes ballistic for 10 minutes and then realizes that he's being a douchebag and that he needs to stop being that way. And then Shadow's like, "Oh man, you know what? You loved Tom. I loved Maria. We both love somebody. Let's team up."
Yeah.
And then they just
And
go,
then for some reason they both become super, because they all collided with the Master Emerald at the same time or something.
yeah, which it makes more sense in the game when they both go super. It really didn't make too much sense in this movie.
No.
But then again, like they just kind of team up just because. It really reminded me of that moment in Batman versus Superman where they're just like, "Martha," and they're like, "Oh, we're best friends now because
God.
both our mom's names are Martha." It's
That
it's
movie
the
was so bad.
same thing. And listen, I do fully understand that this movie is meant for kids.
Yes.
I get that. That thought isn't going over my head.
But I went down that road too, Lewis, so you're not alone. But you know what I think about when I think, oh, this is for kids? I think about Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I think about The Emperor's New Groove. I'm like, there are kids' movies in existence that are legendary. Like, these are movies that I would just recommend any adult, any person should watch them, because they're that funny. So it is possible to make really funny, good films, and I'm sure that it was easier with those because they had an original story, a lot more to work with, but that comes with its own pressures. So I think that we're onto a path here that I can sum up a little bit, and that's that this movie was good, but I think that it suffered in the moment to moment, because
Yes.
I think that there's too much pressure on what should be done and what could be done, that they wound up just kind of giving us a little bit of everything, and it just still
And not
somehow
enough of it.
wasn't enough. Yeah, exactly. I think the best comparisons that I have are the similar kids video game movies, like Detective Pikachu and the Super Mario Brothers movies. I think that those are really good comparisons here because I had the same problem with the Super Mario movie. Honestly, like I loved the movie; it was cool, and it was an original story. So that's the reason I'm
It
bringing
gets
it up.
points there. It gets points.
Exactly, it's original film with just the bare bones of who Mario is, and like they went way back with it. But I think that the big difference there is that even though they had an original story, it didn't help enough because there were so many moments where I was just like, this isn't super funny. This isn't like if I was a kid watching this for the first time, I'd be happy I was seeing a video game character in a movie, and that's about it.
Well, honestly, dude, I wouldn't even go that far. I kind of enjoyed the other Sonic movies a little bit more than this one.
I actually agree with you.
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I liked the first one a lot, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one. I thought the second one was great. And I liked the third one. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it for what it was. But, like, it was weird that it wasn't as good as the other ones, having this crazy all-star cast of characters and voices.
Yeah, and you know, I do agree with you. I think I do like the first one the best, but I gotta say, something that I felt all three of them suffered from was the first roughly half of the film just felt very slow. It felt like there was a lot of plot set up and just not a lot of entertainment to go along with it. And that's rough, especially if you're not a kid and you're not just like ogling at the visuals, which they were very beautiful, but that wasn't enough for me.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I do. But I'm not going to leave off negative here because there were some really good moments in the film. And I mentioned mine earlier. I normally don't like dance numbers, but that dance number with Eggman and Dr. Robotnik when they're both dancing with all the lasers,
Yeah.
I cracked up. I thought
It
that was
was-
so stupidly funny.
It was.
It was my kind of humor on that one.
And I ignore the fact that those suits they're wearing are repelling the lasers, but it hit their head several times. I was like, okay, but this is still funny.
But dance number. And
Dance
speaking
number.
of Gerald and me wishing he was dead, when he actually died and he just goes, I freaking died laughing. I probably laughed harder than the kids because that was just so anticlimactically funny.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
When he
yeah,
gets
yeah.
thrown into the reactor. It was
Yeah.
so funny, dude.
Yeah, no, it was. If I had a favorite moment, and I'm sad to say this because it's still more Jim Carrey, and maybe it's the millennials in us. I don't know.
Yes.
But I did actually really enjoy most of their interactions, and I thought it was such a funny idea that they were going to go in VR together to get like grandson grandfather bonding like caught up on their trip. And I know it was a preview for the film, but just him like jumping on him like pretending to be Santa was such
That
a
was so
silly,
funny, dude.
such a silly Jim Carrey thing to do. And I don't know, I really enjoyed everything that he did. It was so good.
Don't get me wrong. The performances were phenomenal for both characters.
Yeah.
I just wish that Gerald Robotnik just wasn't part of the story to begin with. But
Yeah.
him being there, he did his thing. Jim Carrey, it was Jim Carreying, and it was hilarious.
But that being said, I am honestly blown away that we got a post-credit scene that obviously points us into a fourth film, which is just wild. They're breaking the mold, and they're not doing third movie part 2. They're not doing that stupidness. This is very much going to be like Sonic 4.
It's gonna be a franchise.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be like Fast and Furious at the end. It's gonna be Sonic 10, and
Right.
and we'll get to it in my rating. But I'm okay with it. You know, like ultimately these movies, as much as kids movies can be for adults and adults can enjoy it, these movies aren't for us, and it's for a new generation of Sonic
Sure.
fans. I'm cool with it, but the post-credit scenes really let that inner child of mine just like soar. I was super stoked. We basically got a confirmation that Sonic 4 is just going to be a live action Sonic CD, one of the most underplayed Sonic games ever. And the only reason I played it was because of the GameCube, thank God.
Right.
But Sonic CD was the first introduction of Metal Sonic and Amy Rose. So to
Yes.
get them both in that post-credits scene, was pretty fire, and it actually got me excited for Sonic 4. And I'll be honest, I think I'm just gonna wind up following this franchise, and I can see a Whatcha Watchin for Sonic 4. Like I'm pretty stoked.
Sunken cost fallacy. I'm there for it, man. Like I am definitely gonna be riding this ship until it crashes.
Yeah.
don't
Welcome
care.
to Lobby Up. We're talking about Sonic 10.
Yeah. So yeah, this is basically what Sonic's girlfriend.
Yeah, well, Amy is more like a super fan of Sonic, and Sonic is just like, please leave me the heck alone. Like, I'm not your boy. It's like, I'm not your boyfriend kind of thing. And Amy's like, well, you got no choice in this. So, Amy has a lot to offer to the story, to be honest. And
Cool.
Metal Sonic, dude, like, Metal Sonic is the original Sonic rival. Before Shadow, it was Sonic v Metal Sonic.
Okay.
And like the main thing for Metal Sonic is that he wants to show that he is the superior definitive Sonic, and like craziness ensues. I mean, he's the secret bad guy for Sonic Heroes. Like there is a lot that they can do with that, and I'm for it, dude. Again, the amount of lore that goes behind these characters, I would love to do a 1-to-1 with Sonic versus Kingdom Hearts, because that would be the most convoluted black hole I've ever seen.
I think so. I think it'd be way too much. I don't think that we'd even have fun, to be honest. I feel like it would just be really a big chore. But you know, in all, dude, I gotta say, I did enjoy watching the movies. I know that I said that those first halves were a little bit slow, but I specifically remember watching the first movie, and after the bar scene,
Yes.
and Sonic has like a Quicksilver like scene. From there forward in that movie, it was awesome. I really had a lot of fun watching that, and I kind of feel pretty similar in this one. I'm gonna give it 1 thumb up. I wouldn't even say that it was so. Like I liked it. It was fine. It wasn't, blowing me away by any means, but it was enough for me that I will stream the next one probably. Don't know that I'll go to the theater, but we'll see.
So before I give mine, you finally watch these movies in the lead up to Sonic 3. What would you give a score for the first Sonic movie?
Probably the same. I would say that like maybe if I had like 1 thumb like up a little higher on the first one, and then like someone's like, "Hey Matt, what'd you think?" and I'll just kind of like give him a thumbs up. Like,
And what about the
that's kind of
second
where
one? I'm curious.
about the same as the third, maybe.
So,
like-
so what you're telling me is the franchise is 3 thumbs up.
out of my 6 thumbs, yeah.
Fair. Well, I would give the first one 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed the first
I love
one.
that one, huh?
Yeah, I really did. The second one.
So wait, you're saying that the first Sonic movie is as good as the Fallout series?
Oh no, these are very not serious. Guys, our gaming scores, I would say, are pretty like serious.
We put a lot of thought into those,
like with
that scoring
with
system.
a lot of like heart and thought, and like I'm thinking about it for weeks on end before we. But for the Whatcha Watchin guys, like it's a little,
I just have to give you crap.
So no, it's not as good as the Fallout series, but it still gets 2 thumbs up. All right, for what it is.
Okay.
And then I would give Sonic 2 a 1 thumbs up, and then Sonic 3 I'd give it a 1 thumbs up. I would.
You sure that you wouldn't just like slice off one of your thumbs and like have like 1.5 thumbs? Is that where we're at?
No. It was good. I enjoyed it as a long time Sonic Adventure 2 battle guy. This movie was enough. Could it have been more? Yes. Would I have liked to have seen Rouge the Bat? Absolutely. So I give it a thumbs up. I would watch it. I'm probably going to wind up watching it again. So, and I'm excited for the future of the Sonic franchise, and it's going to keep bringing new fans in. Sonic is alive and well in 2024.
Heck yeah, man. Well, there you have it, guys. That's a wrap. We watched Sonic 3, and if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't have watched this whole episode. But if
You're going to make me choke on my water.
if you haven't seen it, I personally would recommend watching it on streaming. But it's a fun film. If you got kids, definitely watch it with them. It's going to be a fun time. And, I got to say, just before we totally close out, it's just really cool as a longtime video game nerd to be seeing so many of our favorite stories being adapted to the big screen. Some would say that we're just being exploited for money, but I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, if I get more of the things that I love, I'm not going to be complaining. So thanks for lobbying up with us. Until next time.
See you guys.